Well, will you look at that? It's 9 a.m. and it's a Friday morning, so it must be time to ask Rosemary to kick off our meeting. It's great to see everybody this morning. Rosemary, are you queued up and ready to inspire us?
Well, I'm almost ready, and my writing just disappeared on me for a minute here. See if I can find it. Well, I'll just read the text I have below. So anyway, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our open table, a gathering of the Coalition to End Homelessness, where membership means being committed to ending homelessness and to engaging others with respect. We acknowledge that we gather on the homelands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians who have stewarded this coastal home for thousands of years. We honor their stewardship and challenge ourselves and our communities to listen to and act on their wisdom in protecting the earth we all share. Today, we also honor the experiences of women of all backgrounds by marking the beginning of Women's History Month. As a national US celebration, this recognition began in 1981 when the Congress requested that the president proclaim the week beginning March 7, 1982 as Women's History Week. This annual proclamation was repeated for several years, and at the urging of the National Women's History Alliance in 1987, Congress designated March as Women's History Month, which has been proclaimed annually since that time. Many additional countries also celebrate International Women's Day on March 8th, both as a day of protest and as an official holiday. So we are reminded in speeches and actions for a day or a week or a month that half the world's humans are creative, competent actors who deserve enthusiastic treatment and respect. That special days and months are called for reminds us too that such respect and recognition is still not broadly shared. During my first year teaching introductory sociology in a small rural Oregon university, I called out International Women's Day for recognition and shared a few remarkable stories from women's contributions. One male student asked, probably with a bit of cheek, "So when is International Men's Day?" I replied with probably just as much cheeky assurance, "The other 364 days of the year." We know that the road to equity is a long one, complicated by issues of power that can mask the way respect is withheld by generational patterns and reinforced prejudices. The stories we hear and the stories we tell shape our ability to imagine a world where gender as a category does not have such powerful sway. This year, National Women's History Alliance chose the theme, Celebrating Women Who Tell Our Stories, using this month to recognize women past and present who have been active in all forms of storytelling through print, radio, stage, screens, blogs, various forms of social media. So authors, playwrights, songwriters, artists, teachers, grandmothers, and all the women storytellers who break the silences so their lives, women's lives, can be known. I revel in the truths of these storytellers and often find a woman's well-crafted story, usually in poetry form, to share at these Friday meetings. Today, I center us on respect for the storytelling power of women living in our county who are dealing without the benefits of safe and secure shelter. Women alone and with children, those dealing with major health problems, the many who have experienced domestic violence and sexual assault, who may carry these stories in silence with no assurance that anyone would even care to hear, who may sometimes experience themselves or be treated by others as voiceless. Yet, as poet Elise Hart asserts, such women are worthy. They are of our flock. As she says, she is of our flock. Her clothes and her face catch the dust of the outdoors, once great, but renounced its splendor when there was no shed to take shelter against the wind. She has no basin to wash in. She has no nation who will stand and declare, "Here, you will soar." She is one of the omitted many. She is the mourning dove sequestered by currents, by downdrafts she flapped headward against with embattled spirit, but was overtaken. And had you stood where she stood, alone Athena against the bulwarked foe, lack of access, you would have fared no better. We all first blinked our eyes to the sun, worthy of a basin, worthy of a nation. She is of our flock and she is worthy. Carrying this theme of worthiness just a bit further, I close with the words of novelist and political activist Arundhati Roy. She reminds us of the essential connection between power and voice, defined here as the ability to author one's life so that it can be heard. Roy asserts that, quote, there is really no such thing as the voiceless. There are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard. There are only the deliberately silenced or the preferably unheard. Reminded of the mantra, nothing about us without us, those committed to ending homelessness will counter the deliberate silencing and prefer to hear. Raggedy lives can bring forth raggedy stories, and deep truths burst forth to be received when an attentive listener is present to hear. Today is a good day to honor the worthy voices of women whose stories are waiting to be told, whose stories are waiting to be heard. Welcome. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome again to the coalition meeting. Just a couple of comments for anyone who's new. We ask that you use the raise hand function on Zoom when you'd like to be recognized to speak, that you keep your video on off whenever you're doing something that would be distracting, but otherwise encourage you to have it on so we can get to know ourselves in these little boxes. And if you're not speaking, to be sure to keep yourself on mute. We also use the chat for interactions during this event, and it's good to save it from time to time. I found I couldn't save something after a breakout once, so if there's something you really want to save, try a way to copy it. I just as a check-in on that. We use it a lot, though, to share our information about contacting and resources that you may want others to share or resources we need. So feel free to use it freely during the time together. In terms of our community norms, we really are looking for what I said at the very beginning. We are committed to ending homelessness, but we're committing to do it with respect for one another. So try to do that in our conversations and not take up too much space. Since we have over 50 of us here, we all want to be sure our voices are heard whenever that's possible. So if anyone's new or coming back from being away for a while, just want to say hello. This is a time to raise your hand and let us know who you are. You can also put your name and contact information in the chat. So for anyone new, like to say hello and let us know you're here, and what group you might be with, that would be great.
I'm sorry, I can't find the raise hand button. Is it under?
Oh, it's usually at the bottom of the screen, but go ahead and speak.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my name is Mark Askins. I'm with Miracle Messages. We're a service provider and this is my first meeting. I'm so excited to be here. And we provide our unhoused neighbors an opportunity to locate and reconnect with loved ones, be they family, friends, former brothers and sisters in arms. And then we also offer a guaranteed basic income program for people experiencing homelessness and a phone buddy system throughout the US. I'm actually up in King County in Renton, but I'll put my contact information down below. It's great to be here.
Mark. Thank you, Mark. It's good to have you. And we also do little spotlights on groups who provide various services. So if you're interested in sharing that with us, put your contact information there, and Teresa Power Judas will contact you about that.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
So anyone else want to say hello? All right. Well, there's lots of folks here, some of which, oh, there's Michelle. It's nice to see you again. Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, and you're muted, Michelle, just so you know.
Thank you. So I just wanted to jump in real quick. My name's Michelle Massero, and I'm a librarian at Tacoma Public Library. I got to meet several of you last night, and that was really great. We had some questions from last night. One of them was about our new Narcan or naloxone vending machine at Moore. I just wanted to let everyone know that that is there. It is working fine. We haven't had any pushback from the public about it. And it's it's also part of a really great relationship with Tacoma Needle Exchange. So we're hoping that we can have some other services. They are providing some outreach in the libraries as well. And we're hoping that that relationship will strengthen. I will put some information in the chat about that. And I also wanted to mention that we are having a job fair. We are hiring, and we're having a job event on March 8th at the Moore Library from 3 to 6 p.m. I'll also put a link in the chat about that. But I highly encourage anybody to stop by with your resume and talk to us. And we have several positions open. So please share it amongst all of your network. If you have any questions, my contact info will be in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Monique, did you have a comment?
I actually had a question because I hear this vending machine all the time, but I wanted to know how that works. Like, do I just walk up and press a number and get Narcan?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And anybody, it's for everybody. So come take a look at it, encourage people to visit. It's a good idea to always carry it, have it available. So.
Patricia?
I'm not sure about the Tacoma library, but it takes a QR code. You put there's a QR thing and you can get a certain percentage depending if it's the nasal or if it's the injectable. So I've seen the vending machines that help put some in place. Thank you.
We only have the nasal available.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, Rob, I think you can take it from here.
All right. Well, thank you again, Rosemary, for setting the tone for this morning's meeting, as you've done so well every week. So thanks for getting us started. Let's flip over into a conversation about what people are seeing on the streets this week. This segment we do every week during the meeting to lead off and talk about what individuals who are doing outreach, what service providers doing outreach are seeing as changes on the street this week. We know that there are ongoing sweeps happening. The sweep down on South 40th and Fife Street took place this week and displaced folks. Probably talk a little bit more about that as this meeting goes on, and we also know that we are above freezing overnight, which we haven't been for a while, but we're about to return to a period with more freezing or near freezing temperatures up until about March 9th, when then it looks like we get back to lows in the upper 30s and low 40s. So people are still cold. The cold weather page is still linked from the front of pchomeless.org because of the ongoing cold. But I open the floor. Let's go ahead and talk about what people are seeing. And Carrie, I see you have your hand up.
I don't know if anybody else is seeing this, but we're seeing some concerning things over in Stadium District. As you know, a lot of people have been kind of pushed over out of the downtown areas with the camping ban. And so we're seeing a lot of especially individual tents popping up. And in the middle of the night this past week, someone came probably between about 1 and 5 a.m. A pickup truck, from what we know from witnesses have said, is bashing people's tents and taking their things and throwing them in the back of their truck. There was one camper that was by Stadium High School in a field between 3rd and 4th on Northeast Street. And a sweet little man, the neighbors had no issues or anything. Everyone was helping. And then someone just came and violently destroyed everything. And finally found him last night. He was sleeping in front of the chocolate store near Thriftway, just freezing cold, no supplies or anything. It's just heartbreaking. And then there was another woman and her dog just up the street around 3rd and 4th. And they came and did the same thing to her the same night about an hour later. It was a Friday night, probably between about 1 and 3. And I'm just wondering if anybody else is having reports of this And the odd thing too is that one of the voices that was doing this was a woman. And typically we tend to see more like middle-aged men drunk, out for kicks, whatnot, or someone who's had issues with somebody. But this just seems different and concerning.
Thank you for raising that up, Carrie. I have not heard of other instances yet, but I'm keeping my eye out for that as well. Anyone else with updates from the streets? Yeah, Ed and then Bob. And you're muted, Ed.
Just wanted to mention we've got 39 degrees outside and 12 miles an hour wind, which calculates to 29 degrees. So we may not be below freezing on the temperature, but when you add the wind chill, we're definitely below.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Bob.
Thanks, Rob. No real changes in Gig Harbor. Although we did in January, the Fish Food Bank reported a severe increase, significant increase in homeless folks coming in asking for food, clothing, and help. 73 is the number they had. Now, we're still trying to validate which ones came physically into the food bank and asked for help versus called on their financial services line. They haven't segregated that for us yet, and it's a big difference. But we're going to follow up on that. The trend is very alarming, and already end of February they showed another increase, not to the 70 range, but up in the 40 range, which is about 15 more than they normally have. And then I did notice there were 3 new tents the last few days at the very east end of Highway 16 across the Narrows Bridge, just after you cross the bridge where it turns into Jackson Street. We've always had 1 or 2, and that's a little bit outside our area, but saw 2 more there the last couple days. I don't know if anybody how far west people are getting to check on that area, but if not, we can cross the bridge and offer help and blankets and so forth. So Jan, that's just down the street from you guys, right at the bridge entry there.
Thank you, Bob, for that update. And Richard.
Well, I was going to stay silent, but I would hate to give the impression that there's not a lot going on out there. The sweep at what is called the Street of Dreams, or the Fife, South Fife location behind the post office, is kind of wrapping up. There are lots of people dislocated in that area. And the madness continues. Lots of people with their supplies are just hunkered down in a parking lot and are along the street. They don't know where they're going yet. It's pretty grim for quite a number of people now. The sweeps have continued to move people out of relatively secure spots. So it's a mess. A year ago, we were spending most of our efforts going into encampments. Now we are targeting individuals that are dislocated. It could be single tents. It could be people sleeping in doorways. And so there's a lot more of that now. So the supplies are welcome in a different way than they were before. It's also significant to note that there were 3 shootings this last week. A man was killed, his dog was killed, and another man was shot. I don't have an update on that, but so there have been shootings this last week, which is always troublesome. Thank you to Dion and St. Vincent de Paul for hosting the monthly social outreach last night. Quite a number of people were out, including a couple that like us, is like Liz and I is unaffiliated. They have a 15-seat van that has been no longer seats, but is supplies for homeless, and they go out several times a week feeding roughly 100 people a week on their own dime, self-funded, but providing food and services. Oh, what else? Lots going on. The woman speaking about the stadium district. I mean, we're seeing, you know, not only tents, but just people unsheltered, people under cardboard, not even to the degree of having tarps, but sleeping on the sidewalk this last week. So damage is being done with this policy of removing these encampments without providing shelter to the people that are being removed. There's a system that says that they should have shelter. There's assertions that they are offering this, and it's just not true. People are being moved and they are out on the streets. And so it's pretty grim out there. It's not under 32 degrees, but you know, you go try sleeping out there tonight and tell me how, you know, how it's not cold. Anyway, it's causing us to shift how we are doing our contact with people, because they're not in the same place they were a year ago. They're having to seek refuge in all kinds of surprising places. So I suspect others are seeing the same thing that we are, but it's a pretty grim situation. So in terms of things on the street, there is quite a lot going on, and it's a little confusing as to what it all means and where it's all going. So sorry for the rant, but wanted to make sure that, you know, some of those points were not neglected.
Rant on, Richard. That's fine. Verna, I see your hand up.
Around the corner from 5th Street is 39th Street up the hill. And I've spoken to officers a couple of times, and they're being swept today. So some of the folks that were on 5th Street wandered up the hill, and they're going to be booted out today.
Thanks, Verna. Not good news, more displacement. Jay, your hand's up.
So a couple of things. We do still have the need share page that we can access. If you need any help with that, please do. Please join the inclement weather listserv. If you have not and you're doing outreach, please let us know if you need something. That has been an excellent source for networking and communicating about needs and getting things out to people that need it. So utilize that. If you need to utilize that, please join the listserv at PC Homeless. And then you email like you're emailing somebody else at PC, the inclement weather listserv address. So you can see it when you get your first incoming inclement weather message, and then you just send back to that listserv any request that you need. I know that there's been some confusion. So if you have any problems, please let us know so that we can help you. It is new sometimes for everybody. Everybody's got a learning curve. I will put in the data sheets. So if you have those requests, you can add that to them yourself if possible. Also, if you go to the canned food warehouse on 6th Avenue, they have bub bowls for $1.50, and those are excellent to give to people because they're lightweight and they only require hot water, and they have protein in a full meal, and they're usually allergen friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. And let's wrap up our discussion about what's happening on the streets with Patricia.
I just wanted to state about the real rise in overdoses on the ground. And that's due to the supplies that are being tainted, particularly fentanyl. There's also a drug that's coming across called xylene. It's a horse tranquilizer that is pretty significant on the East Coast. There's a couple over here. It's not that. But with Narcan use, it is, you use the Narcan. Sometimes you have to use multiples, but it's to give way so that somebody can get a response to the hospital. It's not meant to reverse an overdose because it's a significant amount, it's a certain amount of time, and then they'll be right back in the overdose. And if you let somebody leave after you've reversed it with Narcan, they start to feel yucky and will actually use more drugs on top of that. This is a brief fast track, but please be aware of that when you see people. Sometimes you don't know what you're looking at because there's multiple drugs being used. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Patricia. And also thank you, Jay, for dropping the need and share spreadsheet on the in the chat. Also, if folks have items that they either need or are willing to share, you can drop those in the chat and we'll gather those and update the spreadsheet that way as well. So thank you, everyone. And let's move on to our community spotlight for today. And Melinda from Fusion, would you like to spend about 5 minutes talking about the services you provide and where?
Yes, thank you, Rob. Do you have the capability to share? I can share my screen.
Yeah, let me give you that here.
I've got 7 slides. I'm going to time myself so I stay within the 5 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah, you should have that ability now.
All right, thank you. Oops. Can everyone see that?
Now I can, yeah.
Okay. My name is Melinda Lowe. I'm a fund development manager for Fusion. I joined last April, and I've been in fundraising for 15 years, mostly in Pierce County. And I had never heard of Fusion. So if you have never heard of Fusion, you're not alone. But the organization has been around for 30 years. It was originally founded by Peggy Laporte, the friends around her table trying to figure out how they could help women they were seeing on the street that needed a place to stay. So fast forward to today, this first slide is our family center. It's named after Pete Anderson, who was the 3rd person in the US to die from COVID. He worked for Lennar, the construction company, and they gifted us large gifts so that we could build this building, and it was named in his honor. We opened December 24th in 2020. We can shelter up to 30 families at any given time, up to 90 days. Referrals are typically through Mary's Place intake line, but if you want to get started with that, my email's at the end. And we do provide a lot of family-centered activities. We do have 22 transitional housing programs, and they're located in mostly in Federal Way, but we have 4 in Northeast Tacoma. And I just wanted to point out that although we're headquartered in Federal Way, all of our leadership team lives in Pierce County, Gig Harbor, University Place, Tacoma, Puyallup, Tacoma. So we feel very invested in what's happening in Pierce County. This transitional housing program is for up to 18 months and provides case management support. We have a unique shopping experience at the Decor Boutique. It was also founded by Peggy Laporte. She's an interior designer by training, and we sell upscale resale. It's a really fun place to shop if you're looking for furniture. It generates about $32,000 a month in gross revenue that goes directly to support our family programs. And Poverty Bay Cafe did close during the pandemic. It's right next door to the boutique, and the couple there, the Olmsteads, gifted us the cafe, and they continue to have their own coffee roastery. So we're looking to reopen that in March and this month, and have a jobs training program in the works. Very briefly, this is some of our community network. It's not an exhaustive list, but we are at the center of some incredible support from places of worship and other nonprofit partners. And the reason why I got involved, with this organization is Fusion piloted a extreme weather response with the City of Federal Way in January of 2022, and we continued it this year. And I also did write a grant from the Puyallup tribe that services Pierce County. So skipping ahead to that, service areas are historic tribal lands of the tribe, streets and neighborhoods around the casino, other neighborhoods is identified, and we've working with the motel partner in Fife. We've had initial conversations with Tacoma Indian Center, Tacoma Rescue Mission, and Associated Ministries. And if you have more information or want to become a referral source, please email me and I'll put my email in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Melinda. And I see Bob, you have your hand up. And you're muted.
Mistake, Rob, thanks.
Oh, okay, no problem. Didn't mean to call you out. Anybody have any questions for Melinda about Fusion and what they do and that in Federal Way as well as along the Northeast Tacoma area? Yeah, Teresa.
Melinda, this is great. Sometimes I think we believe we get a little Tacoma centric and we believe that no one else is doing anything. So really happy to see what you're doing and have you bring it to us. Can you put the your slides in the chat so we can follow up?
Be happy to.
And is there anything that the coalition could do to help? Are there things that you need that you would like to ask us for?
Well, thank you for asking that. I'm kind of stepped into the deep end of the pool with this project, so I'm not versed in housing and homelessness issues. I'm trying to get up to speed as quickly as possible. I think some of the challenges we're finding is, number one, transportation. We have people that can get into the motel to stay, but they don't have transportation. So, and I've heard that as kind of a common theme from some other conversations here. And I guess just trying to build a network around this has been a little bit more challenging than I anticipated, but we've had some great support and conversations from Mike at the Associated Ministries and working with Nate at the Tacoma Rescue Mission. So I don't know if I don't have a specific need right now. I'm just trying to state what I see the problem right now. And I just want to share that even though we're in King County, our hearts and minds are in Pierce County, and we feel more closely aligned with Tacoma than Seattle, honestly. So
great. So we have a couple more folks with their hands up, and hopefully I'm not butchering your name, so correct me, please. Abiola?
Yeah, Abiola.
I was close.
Yeah, you're close. I was just looking over the website and I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about the screening process and criteria applicants need to meet.
I probably will want to refer you to Katie, who's our program manager on that. We are considered a low barrier facility. We do have a policy that no drugs are allowed in the building because we have children and families housed at the PEAT, as we call it. That is to say, if they're stepping out and using drugs elsewhere, we certainly don't, we're not tracking or trying to find out what's going on. It's just trying to keep the building safe for children and families. So if you have any questions beyond that, Abiola, I'd be happy to connect you with Katie.
Okay. Do you know if anything like maybe a criminal background would deter individuals?
We do conduct background checks at this point.
Okay.
All right, and Michelle, you have your hand up.
Hi, I just wanted to see if I can make a connection. Obviously, I'm Michelle. I work with Tacoma Public Schools. And we have right now 2,200 kids, families that are homeless. And so to hear about your program obviously sparked a significant interest to me. And even more significant is the fact that you're in Federal Way, but you're willing to serve Pierce County and Tacoma. So we already connect with Associated Ministries. I'm just hoping maybe that you can connect me with Katie, or maybe I could come and visit your program and see how we can work together to help some of these families.
Yeah, I would, if anybody wants to come and take a tour for our facility, always up for that. I think it's obviously the best way to demonstrate what we do and how families are, making ends meet while we're trying to help them get back up on their feet. So, Michelle, I would love to connect with you on all of that.
Okay, I'll put my contact information and then you and I can just email back.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. And Teresa.
Just to say, follow up on Abiola's question, and a little encouragement that the criminal background, it's good if we can know what that means. I mean, people do criminal background checks all the time, but some people exclude almost everyone with a criminal background, and some have a really lower bar for that. So given that a lot of families have someone in them who has a criminal history because of the way our system is, we like to see a case-by-case approach, but happy to talk more about that with you later. And perhaps you might want to have a networking social at your place sometime, so that a lot of us could come and meet you and see your space and all of that. So just want to put that in your ear.
Thank you, Teresa. But I'll definitely take that back to our team. I think it's a great idea. And I know there is a case-by-case examination of past history of drug use. I can't speak authoritatively on it, but I know it's not just a blanket policy.
And Norman, you want to close out questions for this section?
Yes, I apologize. I came late to the meeting. I had to take care of some personal things. Hi, I'm Norman Brickhouse. I run homeless services for the city of Fife. We're right next to each other. My parents live in Federal Way. I used to live in Federal Way. I also would love to connect with you. I put my contact information in the chat so we could talk. And just so everyone knows, when we run our criminal background checks, we have two major exclusions. History of sexual offenses and arson. Everything else is on a case by case. I mean, typically assault 2 or higher is bad, but that again is a case by case. And when you're dealing with a vulnerable population like children, elderly, people with disabilities, sometimes you have to run background checks. I know we did at Goodwill. So keep doing a great job. I'm sorry I missed the beginning part of it, but I would love to reach out to you and talk more.
Thanks, Norman. I had you on my wish list of people to connect with, so I'll follow up.
Totally cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing this morning, Melinda. And
thank you all.
There's a lot of interest. So all right. So let's shift to our next topic. And Isaiah from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, did you want to provide a just kind of brief overview of the project you're working on with Sally?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Rob mentioned, I am Isaiah. It's always hard when someone says, oh, this is Isaiah, because you're like, well, now how do I say my name twice? But for those of you who don't know, I work for TPCHD under the Environmental Health Division, and my official role is liaison. So my job is basically taking information that I get from these meetings and providing that to our TPCHD folks. So none of us, so we are aware of what's going on the ground, right? So we are currently doing a project in environmental health. So the Isaiah, yes, THE. So we're doing a project in environmental health to gather data, and it's going to be qualitative data. So right now that means we're doing focus groups or interviews with folks who are working on the ground directly. So that means advocates, that can mean providers, that can mean program directors, basically folks that are working directly with houseless people who are houseless. You're distracting me, Rob. So we get a better sense of what the actual health impacts that we're seeing among people who are, unhoused. So for those that are aware or not aware, we generally gather data from Essence. So Essence is the system that gathers ED visits, so any kind of emergency department visits for folks who are experiencing houselessness. That data is not always super representative of what we're actually seeing because it's pretty limited. Usually the provider has to identify a person as houseless, and obviously a person, might not look houseless if they're actually houseless, right? And of course, people who are in ED environments are very much focused on taking care of the immediate needs of the person, and they're not always, tracking what actually might be going on for the person, right? So this is an opportunity for folks who are providers who are seeing the negative health impacts to kind of come to me, come to TPCHD, tell us what they're seeing, and we can go ahead and ideally we're going to create a report of the general kind of themes, the general negative health impacts that we're seeing and create a list of best practices for folks. And of course, we are working as in partnership with Sally Perkins, who's here. So she is a consultant, so she's not with TPCHD, but she's been doing this work for, I mean, I don't even know how many years now, 16 years, 20 years? I'm not sure how many, what the number is.
Quite a few.
Quite a few. So she's been doing this work, and so she's consulting with us on this and how to best go about this, right? So yeah, so I just wanted to take this opportunity as a chance to bring up the project, to let folks know that we're doing this. And if there's anyone that, hey, that might be something that I want to do, or that I might know of someone that might be really interested in doing that. Right now, they're only about an hour. They're only about four to five questions. And it would be me and Sally just kind of chatting with you. So pretty, you know, low stakes, pretty easy going. I'm pretty easy to talk to. So it wouldn't be anything intense, right? But just kind of passing the word along for folks that might want to be interested. So anyway, I'm not sure if folks have any questions for me or for Sally, but I'm happy to answer any that may have come up. And I can go ahead and put my email in the chat. I'm pretty sure a lot of folks might already have it, but I'll put my email in just so if you want to reach out to me individually, we can do that.
Great. Thanks, Isaiah. And what context would you add, Sally?
My role with Isaiah is in support of this project for the health department. So I'm helping with process and with thinking about the range of people that we need to reach out to and hope to talk with, and then in helping to organize the themes and talking with health department folks about how best to bring their unique public health perspective to the whole conversation about how environmental conditions affect unhoused people. So those of you in the coalition, you know, I am a person of some opinions occasionally, and just letting you know that in my professional role with Isaiah, my opinions are not important, but the opinions and observations and experiences of the people that we'll be listening to are super important. So my role will be to be sure that we capture that breadth of perspectives that's important for this project. So I'm excited to work on it. Isaiah is a great partner. We're having a good time.
Awesome. All right. So any questions for these two before we move on to the next topic? Yeah, Jay.
Less of a question, more of an endorsement. I've talked to Sally in her capacity in this area, and this information is so important. If people can advocate for the house lift that they've worked with and the environmental changes they see over any time frame that involves our outreach, it is pivotal to start understanding the physicality and the dangers that happen. And the only way to get people to understand that is communicating it through projects like this. So it is very vital for people to be able to create systems that actually take care of our homeless if they know what it does to them. And it's a large part of our voice that hasn't been heard. So as much participation would be appreciated as possible.
Thanks, Jay. And Jan.
Yes, in this coalition Friday meeting, we've had a few reports of folks who have witnessed sex trafficking actually during the day in front of businesses. There was a business owner who moved his business secondary to that kind of activity next to an encampment on Tacoma Avenue. Ms. Washington, who has been an amazing voice for that kind of victimization of those who are living homeless. So Sally, are you and Isaiah going to scan the chats or put somebody out there? It was Lavada. I'm sorry, Lavada, you're right. So there are little bits of information that come out during these meetings that actually take some thought as to what is really the underlying condition. So are you going to scan previous, or do you want us to tell you about these folks? I mean, Lavada is amazing, and businesses can give you reports of other kind of associated activities.
We're noticing
it's the environment of homelessness. I mean, I don't know how broad the term environment is.
Right. It's broad. Jan, we're tracking both the comments that are made on the inclement weather calls, as well as paying attention to what the conversations are on these calls, trying to alert ourselves to those topics that might not have come up at the beginning. And then we urge anybody who has something they want to say to us about this to be in touch with Isaiah to set up a time so that we can have those conversations.
Great. All right, well, thank you to Isaiah and Sally for the update on this. Do let me know if there's anything the coalition can do to help move the work that's this project forward as well, beyond providing this space. And of course, we're already behind on our agenda, so let's go immediately to the next item, which is a brief update from Christine Lindquist about some upcoming / ongoing issues with Medicaid in Washington State.
Thanks, Rob. Hey, everyone. My name is Christine Lindquist, and I run Washington Healthcare Access Alliance, which is our state's free clinic association. And I just wanted to talk to you really briefly about Medicaid unwinding, in case this is a term you might have heard about, and how it might impact people and also contribute to homelessness. So during the pandemic, states were prohibited from disenrolling folks from Medicaid, which is our public insurance program for folks living in poverty. But and that was under the public health or the public emergency declaration. So that is all that is all being rolled back and returning to normal operations for the Healthcare Authority, which is the organization in our state that runs Medicaid, is what they're referring to as unwinding. So what that means is that there were people who were enrolled in Medicaid or have been kept on the Medicaid rolls who might no longer be in touch with the Medicaid office, like, for example, if they don't have a mailing address, or maybe their eligibility is in question and they can be disenrolled. And so they will lose those meager benefits, but they are benefits that keep people functioning, especially if they have chronic health conditions. So this is something especially for people who are working in this field to be aware of. We anticipate that a lot of people will be disenrolled from Medicaid, and that it could contribute to homelessness, and also that it could just contribute to more people suffering and not getting the health care that they need. I have some links that I'll post in the chat, and I'll also send along a little kind of information sheet to the whole group. Did you have a question, Patricia?
I had a comment. Just because they're sending out multiple pieces of paperwork for those unhoused, and the response time is like 10 days or less. And then the way you can expedite it is with a fax machine. Try to find a fax machine these days. You know, it's like, and the fact that they didn't keep in contact with people for years and now they're looking for them, and people won't know till their benefits are off. And that's a whole different process than review. Just saying what's happening is a little you're going to see a huge wave, not to mention on the other aspect, you're going to have a reduction in your EBT amounts. And that's where you'll see a lot of, you'll start to, for providers, you'll see a lot of people coming in desperation all of a sudden, because that's what's sort of happening. These waves are happening when things get cut off and they don't know why, because they haven't been able to get a hold of people, because through the COVID, people have moved so much and the availability to the spots or their mailing addresses and things like that have changed. I'm just speaking from a lived experience perspective. Thank you for letting me share.
I totally hear you there. That's the concern.
And then Timothy asked in the chat about a cutoff date. And I know Carrie addressed it somewhat, but I just wondered if you had more to share.
Yes, so the cutoff date is dependent on the enrollment date, which is rolling throughout the year. But there could be people who are disenrolled as early as April 30th. But I have a little bit of an inside scoop from the Healthcare Authority that they're going to sort of slow walk this in Washington State, because there is a lot of concern about the number of people who have lost an address or have changed address during this time, and they recognize that their systems are dysfunctional at best.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for the update. All right, and then the feels like this morning is just piling on the downers, but Carrie, you want to talk a little bit about the food stamps changes?
I sure do. First of all, a lot of cultures, when we would get together, people would ask you, have you eaten today? Or ¿Qué comiste hoy? If you're in Spanish. So, have you eaten today? Throw something in the chat if you ate. Throw an empty bowl if you have not. I'm curious to see what's going on out there and how you're all doing. Because I know that even if you work in this field, it's not glamorously paid. We're pushing for that 6% raise. And so a lot of you probably feel this pinch. Maybe you even have EBT too. But as many of you have heard, there's something called a hunger cliff happening right now. As of the end of the month, people who are receiving this extra food pandemic assistance, which for the max for one person was $280, $281 a month, plus an extra $95 a month if you were already getting the maximum. So people may have gone from $280 up to $380 a month and now are suddenly cut off down to $23 and not understanding what's happening. So this is obviously a huge concern, especially for those trying to shore up that need. You can find out more at the federal site, the USDA or any of the government websites. Everyone's chatting about this and also trying to figure out how to help shore it up a little bit. The biggest trends we're seeing at the federal level, because of the pandemic assistance, they noticed that fruits and vegetable consumptions went up 26%. And so a lot of these newer programs, especially with this administration, are geared more towards healthy eating because they know that can also reduce the medical expense. And so it's kind of like a win-win situation, helping agriculture and helping to lower that Medicaid and Medicare expense. So we're going to see a lot of push towards helping food banks and towards helping these matching produce programs rather than actually directing that assistance directly to people. And so that's a major shift in how that policy is working. This is affecting 21 states around the country right now. We know that some of these states already pulled out their emergency orders up to 2 years ago, some of them. And so we're looking at places like Alaska, our neighbor to the north, that's having a huge disaster. They're actually having to get security guards in some of their social services because people are literally rioting when they go in and find out their benefits are cut. So I wanted to see how this was playing out here. I spent the whole day on February 14th and also the 28th hanging out at DSHS for a few hours just to listen to caseworkers talking to people, kind of getting the vibe for the room. And there was definitely some increased tension. The thing that surprised me most, because I was thinking how much this would dramatically affect unhoused populations, because they're probably facing the most dramatic cut, not having that shelter expense as part of their deductions. But the thing I was actually hearing that surprised me the most is people who were recently housed, and because of these backlogs with people having to recertify and reprocess everything, a lot of people aren't getting their monthly cash on their EBT, and so they're unable to pay rent. And this is a huge concern because if you can't pay rent, you are going to lose your home. And so people who had recently been housed are panicking, not even as much over food because they know that they could probably go to a food bank or something, hopefully. But the biggest concern seems to be that they're not getting this cash in a timely manner. And one man, he was banging, almost broke the plexiglass because he was so worried he was going to be out on the street. So that's something huge to look for too. I can also tell you, and feel free to pipe in anyone that might have more information. I can't see your hands raised or anything, but a lot of you probably know about this from different angles. I've also been talking to grocery stores and food banks about how this is impacting them. A lot of them say it's too soon to tell. We're only in day 3 of this right now, and that we're probably going to feel the pinch more within a month or 2, because people might have been able to maybe stock up a little bit with this extra, or maybe they've known this was coming and so, been cutting corners. But we're probably going to feel the biggest stretch heading now into spring and then summer when school is out too, depending what they do with the school summer programs. The other thing we're not really seeing, at least I haven't anyway, they've seen some media attention to this, and we've been pushing hard with reporters for several months trying to get this covered so that people know that there's going to be this huge need coming. But we haven't really seen a robust community outreach piece. And we know that that typically happens more around the holidays, and that's a long time to wait. Let's see. We're seeing a lot of rhetoric online, especially The people pushing back are talking about the national debt, how 47% are not paying taxes, how people are buying soda pops. So we know that this is coming from a central pushing source. I'm not sure which one, but I can guess. And so we're seeing a lot of people saying, oh, don't help people. They just need to go get a job. And oh, we already have this huge national debt. Why are we going to add more to it? Oh, 47% of these people don't even pay taxes. So why should we help them? So people, especially at tax time, have this big concern. Things that are happening at the state level to shore it up. We've got HB 1784 addressing hunger relief. Again, we're seeing that trend of going to food banks, senior meals, and farmers market match rather than putting that into individual pockets. We've also got HB 1238 and SB 5339 around school meals, and then HB 1141 and SB 5188. But folks, we're talking about $90 million here, and we're only looking at maybe 20 or so to shore that up, and that hasn't even gone through yet. So whatever we can do to help push that. We know that people don't like to leave their stuff and go stand in line for 2 hours. The waits at DSHS are more like 5 to 6 hours right now. And if you don't get that case processed in person, you're going to go into that hopper backlog, and God only knows how long it'll take you to get your food benefits up. And people might not be aware of the full deductions or anything they can take. So any help that we can give, I encourage low barrier, get people their IDs. We know that most food banks, you need an ID to walk through that door. And yes, I will list the bills in the chat and try to catch up. But feel free to hop in, and I know we're going to talk more about this with food banks and things next week.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie, for setting that context. And we have a couple of hands up, and then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. But I appreciate the context. Jay, your hand's up.
3 things. There's a big problem. DSHS, when they call you on a cell phone, comes as the spam risk, and they will not leave a voicemail, and people are losing their benefits because of this. I caught one of my caseworkers' calls on accident. I usually don't answer spam calls because they are spam calls. So if everybody could help get DSHS to understand that they are accidentally spamming people and killing people's funds because of it, that would be helpful. 2, going to DSHS is one of the most traumatic things I've lived through in my life whenever I have to deal with them. Going there is definitely a panic attack. Going there is a week of a complete shutdown for me. Going there is hell. And they will find every way to criminalize your poverty when they are facing you. There are incredible damages done because we're traumatized. And it is centered on the individual's fault at every corner. You walk in there, you go to talk to them, and they smirk at you. Like you obviously are wasting their day, their time, their energy, and everything. And the only thing keeping them there is the money that they're getting in their pocket. And it puts them above you, and they know it. I cannot take any more time today on that topic, but I am more than happy to talk to anybody about it because it needs to change. And it is incredibly a portion of why people will not go for assistance or seek assistance from a lot of our services, because if DSHS is the center of it, then that must be how everyone is. The other thing is ID loss. If you go to DSHS, they will help you get your ID at the loss of your driver's license. They will not replace your driver's license, and you will lose your driver's license, and then you have to repay for it. So yes, you can get your ID replaced at a cost to the rest of your life. Things to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. And Patricia.
I'm going to comment on also, I know it's not about the bills, but there's a change in the Social Security amounts. There's a change in all the amounts. The Social Security is going up. So those that are recently housed are struggling with what they have to pay and their difference. And things were equated to when everything was in the heyday. So people are panicking on that end. And I will comment, I wasn't planning to, in regards to what Jay said about your driver's license. I personally, lived experience, fell into that trap, and my driver's license expired through COVID and so forth, and went back to go get it. The difference between an ID and a driver's license is now $81, not to mention what I have to do to go get it. And, you know, to get a proper job and what I used to do, I have to have a driver's license. I can't just have an ID, because the requirements for government for a lot of these jobs are that you need to have a driver's license. Just saying. And I've been reaching out to a lot of people about just getting a driver's license, and they're misunderstanding to be able to get an ID. So I have an ID, but I need a driver's license, and I just don't have the funds, and I can't get a job without one. Well, in my thing. So let me just leave it at that. But that's the kind of stress, as well as like the paperwork that are being flown at you at this time. It's everything. It's every reviewal that's coming out of 2020 all at the same time. And that is like a breakdown. And then you send it in and you don't, right? Like in my circumstance, I keep on sending back the paperwork and faxing it and doing everything I can to make sure it's right. And they send it back that I didn't do something, or what is life, or what is this? There's like a bit of those gaps that are going on. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Patricia. So before we move on to the next item on the agenda, I just want to acknowledge this morning's meeting is really feeling heavy. We're going to have a breakout conversation after the government updates here in a moment, to have a chance to kind of unwind that a little bit. So appreciate everyone's energy and concern that we've still got 70 people who are here, even though this is heavy. And look forward to those smaller group conversations here after the government updates. So let's shift over to those. And yes, I'm going counter to the agenda again because it's what I do. But before I get to the government updates, Jay, I see your hands up again.
All right, to counter all the negative, I just want to bring something up. DEM backed us for inclement weather with 120 blankets to our staging sites. That is a incredible gift and much appreciated, and has really helped so many people. So I know that today has been heavy, and I'm sorry, and I am a contributor of that. But really good news. We do have one state agency that's working in our direction. DEM is really trying. So like, super applaud.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, we got to call out good things when they are happening. And no, it's no one's fault that it's heavy. It's just that it's in the air. There's a lot going on. And so we'll talk about that here shortly. So moving on to our government updates. I was notified this morning by Caleb at the City of Tacoma that neither Caleb nor Matthew would be attending today. So we will not have a City of Tacoma update. He did share an email update to me, which now I'm not finding. Let's see if I can get to it. Just a reminder that on March 14th, during the study session at the City of Tacoma, March 14th, a Tuesday at noon, there'll be a presentation on the homelessness services update to the City Council. And it will include data about the camping ban, and then updates on the work around strategy, shelter, and inclement weather response from the perspective of the City of Tacoma. So that'll be coming up. Unfortunately, no one could be here to talk about it, so I just get to be the messenger. Let's move on to any other.
I see Chikata has her hand up there.
Oh yeah, Chikata, go ahead.
Sorry. Thank you, Rosemary, for catching that. Hi, Rob and everyone. I think last time I was here, I spoke and let you guys know that the City of Tacoma is going to be doing our outreach to the community around the proposed changes. Our dates have been set for the outreach events. The survey is on the City of Tacoma's rental housing code webpage, and that should be going, I think it's already live, but it should be live today. We're having our community outreach events on the 23rd and the 30th, the 23rd, the 29th, and the 30th of this month. And then I think I said last time that I would be willing to come to this group and do a presentation around that and get you guys' feedback, because it's very important that we get the community's feedback. And in addition to our big events, we're going to be doing targeted events. So that is live. I will be sending the information to the link of the survey and all of that on the listserv. So I figured it out. Somebody just told me it's just the email thing, because I'm all like not computer savvy. So I'm trying to figure out where this listserv was. So somebody told me it's just like sending it out in the email. So if anybody has any, I mean, I know this is a government updates. If anybody has any quick questions, I could answer that, but I'll make sure everybody gets that information, because we want to get the voice and it's of everybody. And it's very important to council that we make sure that we especially get the voices of property housing providers that aren't the big management companies and big landlords, the ones who have the smaller properties that can house families and stuff like that. We want to make sure that we in particular get their voices around some of these changes. So thank you guys for allowing me to bombard this section.
Yeah, no problem, Chocolata. And I did drop the link to the page on the City of Tacoma website, as well as the email address you can send a message to the full coalition on in the chat. And just let me know when you would like to talk to the coalition and talk about this issue or this project in more detail. You know, we could carve out time as early as next week. So
okay, yeah, I can't remember who is. You have a very proactive group of people here. I don't know if it was Rosemary or if it was Sally or if it might be somebody that I've just their names might just come to mind because I'm used to working with them. But somebody reached out last week and was like, asked me how much time I would need if I wanted to come to do it at this meeting, or if we wanted to have a separate session or something. I am open and willing to work in any way that works best for you guys, because we want to be able to maximize the voices and get as much input as possible. But if you guys could please take that survey, send it out to your networks, because I'm sure everybody on here has their own set of networks, whether it's family, friends, that this might affect. That will be greatly. So I am open. I mean, I think the only day that doesn't really work for me is Wednesday, but I'm willing to do it at this meeting if you guys want to take the time out and do it here.
yeah, I think we probably want to do it during this meeting rather than adding another meeting. And I'll touch base with you about how we can make that happen next Friday. Awesome. All right, moving to our next government update. I haven't even had a chance to check if Jeff Rogers is on the call or anyone from Pierce County Human Services, but any updates from Pierce County Human Services?
I am here. Yes, great conversation this morning. Just wanted to announce that we have released our annual homeless housing program funding opportunity. This is the big funding opportunity we release annually. Funding will be available for projects from July 1, 2023 to June 30th of 2024. We've changed our process. In the past, you've worked directly with Pierce County Human Services, and we've done things a little differently, but we've gotten a little techie, and we now go through the Pierce County procurement process that every other person that applies for funding across Pierce County for any department goes through. I'm going to place into the chat a link to that site. We don't do it old-fashioned way like you're used to in the past. This is a new way. I would encourage people, if you're applying, to go as quickly as you can to register, because you have to have an account in this OpenGov system and navigate your way through a new process. Applications are due March 24th by 4:30 p.m. If you are looking to apply for funding from Pierce County this year to address homelessness.
Thanks for the update, Jeff.
Did you hear me?
I did.
I don't know why my mic all of a sudden looks mute when I never even touched. I'm like, I've been on mute the whole time.
I didn't turn you off, so
Okay. Well,
I can't be blamed.
Okay, well, I just was making sure you heard me, but
Yeah, we heard you.
that's the update. And I'll go ahead and put the link now.
All right. And I see Jay, you have your hand up.
Jeff, is any of that funding available for like a startup nonprofit? Because yeah, that's something that may need to be addressed. There's a lot of people with a lot of good ideas, but it costs like a couple $1,000s to start something. So can we possibly look at if that's a possibility or what the ramifications are, just in case there are some people in here that would like to start a nonprofit but have no idea how to deal with that?
This process doesn't work to help you start a nonprofit. But there are other processes and other things we could connect you to help you work on that. We are also creating a different portal here at Pierce County to help people with applying for funding as well. So if you are interested in that process, please reach out to me and we could have a one-on-one conversation about how to move through that process. But this funding is open to any organization. You don't have to be an existing provider that we fund. We do fund new programs. Last year, there were a couple agencies we've never funded before that's come to the table and applied for our funding that we have funded. So yes, we like new ideas, new programs, new agencies, and we encourage them to apply for our funding, just like the standard programs we've been funding for 25 to 30 years that I can remember. So if you're a new agency, we encourage you to apply.
Thank you, Jeff. And let's see. So Chiquata again.
I'm sorry, Rob just corrected it in the chat. We didn't want any confusion. We know that there's a tentative initiatives that's going around, and that's different than what the City of Tacoma's rental housing code is and our changes. So I will post the correct link for the survey and then also send it out on the listserv. So we just didn't want any confusion because we know both of those things are going around, and even though they have some information that might overlap or whatever, they're two very different things. So we need your input on the rental housing code, because that's going to make a difference to council on what they passed and every pass. So some very important proposals on there that we need your input. So thank you.
Yeah, sorry for that mistake. Thanks for catching it.
Oh, I didn't. It's Kenny Copel. He my right-hand person. I didn't even know he was on the call, and he's like, yeah. So thank you, Kenny, for pointing that out for me.
Awesome. All right. And folks from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, any updates to share this week?
Hey, y'all. Good morning. This is Jenny. You can tell I haven't spoken this morning. My voice is very froggy. We have great news about flu. The data are showing that we are near baseline in Pierce County now. So that means our flu season officially, you didn't hear it from me, but it means that flu activity is near where it was before the season started. So that is fantastic news. COVID, there was just the CDC just put out a new study about showing that the bivalent booster gives really good protection against Omicron subvariants. So all eligible people, we are still really encouraging folks to try and get an updated bivalent booster dose. And that is equal to like at 2 months or greater than 2 months after the COVID-19 primary series or the last monovalent booster dose. So I know it gets a little bit confusing even for me, but if you're not sure if you're eligible or want to learn more, I will include a CDC nice webpage that sort of outlines the booster eligibility and explains that a little bit more. And then what else? I just wanted to share some events. I'm sure that folks are already talking about Collaboration for a Cause, March 16th in Puyallup. I know that information has been shared. On March 18th, we're going to have a COVID-19 vaccine clinic at Shiloh Baptist Church Shelter, and the staff there want that to be open to anyone who needs a vaccine. That is from 11 a.m. to 3, 1211 I Street. And of course, you can count on me to send you information about that as it gets a little bit closer, because it isn't for a couple more weeks. And then I sent out a flyer about an event called Warm Up the Neighborhood. I'm not sure if I joined the meeting late today, so I'm not sure if this has been mentioned already, but it is an event on March 5th. So this Sunday, 10 a.m. to 12, put on by Sun Alliance. It is near the 7-Eleven on South 96th and Steel Street. And that is distribution of warm clothes and hygiene items. And that is it from me. Questions, concerns?
Not seeing any. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Isaiah, was there anything additional you needed to share today?
Nothing too crazy. Because it looks like the weather is warming up, our climate justice coordinator is looking into deactivating. For the time being, we are still activated, so the environmental health division is still activated to monitor the weather. But I think in the next week or two, we're looking to deactivate. So that's one update. The other update is that the data is still slow to come out because of construction on the website. So I reached out to folks to see if we can get some more information about freezing injury and non-freezing injury, but it looks like the data is still not available. But once that's out and available to be shared, I'm happy to get that out to folks who are interested. And then of course, focus group doing that. But other than that, in terms of environmental health, I don't have any updates at the moment.
Thank you, Isaiah. And let's see, I don't think we have anybody from the Pierce County Department of Emergency Management on the call, but let's pause for just a moment just to see if we do. I want to echo Jay's thanks to them as well, though, because they have been helpful over the last week during cold weather. Patricia, I see your hand up.
Ivan was here, and I think that he has a conflicting meeting at the same time, so maybe give him some space when he does come here, or maybe earlier. Just an idea. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. All right, so let's move on. Thank you to everyone for the government updates. I promised we would get to the breakouts, and so we'll do that here shortly. But Timothy, before we get there, you want to provide a review of last week's breakout, and I can bring it up on screen?
Yeah, happy to do that. So last week we talked about the Tacoma for All ballot initiative. There was a presentation around that, and then afterwards we broke up into chats and had some discussion about what we all thought about it and what we wanted to learn more about it. As always with these discussions, it kind of went where it went, and people talked about what they talked about. It wasn't particularly focused on what people wanted to learn, but there was a great deal of feedback. Some of the general feedback that I highlighted is that people talked about the need for collaboration and building bridges, finding space to look at the common good. People talked about how the more inclusive it was in terms of the protected pool, the less divisive and the more inclusive it would feel. There was discussion within one group about the financialization of property being a core problem that people needed to look at. There were several comments about learning from other jurisdictions that are innovating stuff, and a note that I-135 in Seattle passed, and looking at that as a model, I suppose. There were a number of concerns that were mentioned. If there was any sort of general thing from this, I got a little bit of the call, it's coming from inside the house vibe from what people were talking about. people said housing providers aren't really excited about this, and there's going to be pushback coming from there. People talked about being concerned about pushback from larger landlords as well as smaller landlords. I know that when I've seen very similar things where there's been like a small business tax that started at, not very small businesses, but when the pushback came, sounded like they were going after mom and pa's. I think we can anticipate the same sort of dynamic in this initiative. Concerns raised about the inability to evict and how that affects smaller landlords and providers. Again, will it be a problem for service providers? The same thing just kind of keeps coming up. And then there's this thing about how it doesn't actually address the issue of insufficient housing. And there might be blowback in terms of landlords being more reluctant to rent to certain individuals, and questions about eviction policies. That's where the concerns seem to cluster. And then, of course, there is the resource list at the end, which you can scan at your leisure. And at the very end of all of these, I always append the hiring opportunities that are out there. So if anybody has hiring opportunities, just feel free to drop them in the chat and they will wind up in that spot in the notes.
Great, thank you, Timothy. And as always for that summary. And let's see, lots of discussion in the chat, which is what is distracting me a little bit. But let's move into a breakout conversation. And we have a couple of things that we thought people could discuss a little bit in the breakout today. We recognized coming into the meeting that we were going to have some conversation about funding winding down, about concerns that there's going to be even more people impacted in our community. And so I actually think we can probably talk more about the second part of the question rather than the first. And that is in the breakout, what keeps you going in the face of what can feel like tough news so often? It feels like we've had tough news being covered this morning, maybe a little too extensively, but it is what's happening in the community. So let's have conversation on that. I am going to start. This will be the same conversation kind of formula that we do every week. I'll put people in small breakout rooms of 7 or 8 folks. If one person can take notes and bring those notes back and paste them into the chat, that allows Timothy to do what he does. But again, our question that we'll spend the next 15 minutes on is what keeps you going in the face of what can feel like tough news so often? So away we go. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully that opportunity to have conversation was rejuvenating. 15 minutes flies by, but hopefully that was good for folks. And I'm taking a quick screenshot because I never see this many cameras on. So Smile, you're on camera. Let's move on with the next items in our agenda. We do have a short period of time left and a fair amount of stuff to cover. One reminder though, please, everyone put your notes that you gathered during your conversation into the chat so Timothy can do his magic. And let's move along. So the next item on the agenda is just a very brief update on the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness. The advisory implementation advisory board is meeting this afternoon from 1 to 3. The link for the meeting can be found on this page. and people are encouraged to go ahead and show up and listen to the meeting, and there will be an opportunity for public comment toward the end of the meeting. One of the discussions that will be taking place is breakout conversations regarding how the advisory board should continue, whether it should continue, and in what capacity as the work on the comprehensive plan moves forward. So hopefully folks can join that. I also wanted to say a little bit about advocacy updates this morning, and selfishly wanted to share some information on statewide advocacy. So earlier this week, I sent an email to the full coalition mailing list regarding urging folks to take a couple minutes to take the action that I just posted in the chat. The reason that that I sent that to the coalition list is one of the big funding priorities that needs to get filled by the legislature this year regards funding for homeless services across the state. As you are probably aware, one of the primary funding sources for things like rapid rehousing in the different counties across the state comes from funds that are collected as part of document recording fees. So largely funds collected on real estate transactions. Well, what's happening right now with interest rates being high and the economy being what it is, there's not a whole lot of people buying real estate, selling real estate, or changing their, refinancing their homes because the interest rates are higher. So because of that, counties across the state are seeing a 30 to 50% reduction in revenues from the document recording fees. The current estimate of what the legislature needs to fund in order to backfill that funding is $160 million. And so this is one of the funding requests that the Housing Alliance that I work for, Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, is pushing the legislature to try to fund to ensure that we don't need to see a 30 to 50% reduction in funding for homeless services. If the legislature does not fund the full amount, then counties across the state will begin cutting homeless services in July. So it's critical that folks follow that link that I dropped in the chat. And it's real simple. That just gives you a simple form. You put in your name and address, and it will automatically send letters urging the legislators to follow up on budget requests. And the reason that it's critical to do this right now is that we are at a point where legislators are talking a lot about their budget investments for this current biennium. The legislative session doesn't wrap up until April 23rd. So the budget items will not be finalized until that time. So we still got plenty of time, but they're having the conversations right now. So we want to make sure that we raise up the homeless services issue so that it's very clear that it's at the top of the concerns for folks. And the reason that I really wanted to push this hard in today's meeting is, ironically enough, even though there's a lot of us engaged in this work around homelessness in these calls every week, Pierce County advocates are not very active compared to other districts across the state when we do these kinds of alerts. So I wanted to raise it up because it directly connects to funding for the services that we care about and helping the people that we care about in the community. And also because if you're in the 27th district in particular, Speaker Lori Jenkins, who has attended these meetings, is a major force in deciding the direction of what comes to the floor and what gets added to the budget. So she needs to hear from us. So if you have a minute, please take that action, and I'll paste it in the chat here one more time so everybody sees it. Other advocacy opportunities. Again, I'll mention the Tacoma City Council study session coming up on March 14th. Put it on your calendar for noon. We'll get to hear what the city has to say in its latest update about homelessness, and put the pressure on if we don't agree with what they're saying. So as a reminder, though, at study sessions, there's not an opportunity to actually make comment. However, being informed about what folks are talking about as they consider the homelessness updates and calling out anything that we consider to be BS is a good idea. Sally, I see your hand up.
Two things. One, on March 7th, the City Council, Tacoma City Council, is having a committee of the whole meeting at 3 o'clock to talk about their priorities for the year. They've done a couple of planning retreats, and the committee of the whole meeting is where they'll kind of pull all that together. That will give us a pretty good idea of where they're headed on some of this stuff. So it might be worth watching that or watching the video later. The second thing is March 14th is also community forum. So if you hear things at the study session that you need to comment on, you can go to the regular city council meeting, and at the end of the regular meeting, community forum gives you a chance to testify. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. And Richard.
I, like many, resent this 90-second opportunity to speak with these people. There is nothing. Why cannot the coalition be on the agenda to present to the city council as part of the program and the public process, much like the staff that they have who are given 20 or 30 minutes or however much time is needed? Can we invite ourselves? Hell, I'm just going to do it, but why not be part of the program rather than the peanut gallery, if you will? There would be an opportunity to present the impacts on this camping ban in a more comprehensive way, rather than getting 90 seconds to make comments that don't have that much effect. Anyway, I'm still agitated from today's meeting, but anyway, that's what's on my mind. I may just go ahead and write my own report to the city council on what I think about the impacts of their camping ban and submit that to them and put it out publicly. That may be the way to go, but it would seem an opportunity for the coalition to have a place on the agenda, not as somebody to sign up for a 90-second comment period. I hope I'm making sense. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Richard. And yeah, do that and post it to your Facebook and spread it around. Yeah. All right. Anyone else with comments about advocacy before we move on? Yeah, Rosemary. Yeah, thank you for stepping up. Oh, and you're muted right now.
It took me a minute. I just wanted to let everyone know that the 1/10 to 1% for housing will probably be, that vote will be continued for another couple of weeks. I'm working with a group called Revenue for Housing, and we've been advocating for this for over 2 years, and did a really big job in December, getting a lot of people representing all kinds of parts of the community, people who spend a lot of time wading through everything else on that meeting. With Richard's frustration, the sort of feeling you have of, I'm here for hours and now I get 30 seconds, 3 minutes, actually, 90 seconds, I guess. But anyway, it's problematic that this is being continued again, but the importance, and I've said this when I've reported on before, the county council needs to have a supermajority of 5 votes when they pass tax measures. And they have 4 votes and they're still working to get the 5th. So now the continuance, as far as I understand, will be to March 21st. And I do encourage you to save that date if possible to make a testimony. I'm going to put out something to the whole coalition of other steps you can take in the meantime, because not all of us have the opportunity or our ability to sit through those meetings to make the comments. And besides, we'd want to spread them around in as many ways as possible. So there are ways besides public comment, there's a sign-on letter that you can do. We can email the members of the county council, and then we can share this as broadly as possible. So I'll put those opportunities to the whole coalition with the ways to do them, and look forward to your help with promoting this tax that we really need to get some housing going.
Thank you, Rosemary. And thank you for your work continuing to lift that up. Oneida, I see you have your hand up.
So I was just going to comment on speaking before City Council, because yes, 90 seconds is not very long. And I agree, go ahead and write the letters and send them out broadly to our council and our city manager. But when you do it also in that little short period of time, you give everyone in the city who's on, citizens, a chance to see what's happening and how people are feeling about it. So I would encourage both. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. A lot of times making those comments publicly has power because it shows that people are concerned. So thank you. All right, so let's move on with our agenda. We've only got about 11 minutes left. Jan, any updates from the Safe Sites for All committee?
Yes, we'll get an update on Monday. Everybody's welcome to join us noon on Monday. Go to the website to register. Safe Sites for All. We'll probably, I'm sure we'll talk about the safe parking network and the work that's going on there. There's some strong new options happening for safe parking. And Paula Anderson from New Hope, who is the lead person on this, would have joined us today, except that she's having kind of a bummer of a day because New Hope is the only site in the city of Puyallup that the city will allow to serve this population, and it was vandalized last night. So do what you can to send good vibes Paula's way. But on an up note, one of our successes is that due to inclement weather and those of us who respond, which is all of us respond in one way or another, we last night had a very successful open house at the new St. Vincent de Paul Resource Center. For those of you who are outreach workers, either volunteer or paid, go to the website for St. Vincent de Paul, and there are things for you to gather to take out to folks in the streets. So it was a wonderful, excuse me, it was a wonderful event last night. We thank St. Vincent de Paul. And afterwards, we just had a darn good time at a local bar. Okay, so see you soon.
And what happens at the local bar is not for sharing here, but it was great to see everybody last night, even if I didn't have a chance to come by the bar. Any other committee updates that need to be shared today? All right, not seeing any. All right, we have a couple minutes for any good trouble announcements. Anything that folks want to announce? Jay.
Two things with St. Vincent de Paul. They could use high protein food bars and things like that can be handed out. They're really short on the food portion, and those can be handed out with blankets and otherwise to help produce body heat. So high protein snack bars of any kind, Cliff bars, things like that would be greatly appreciated. And Tammy at FOB has a fundraiser that she should bring up and tell everybody about.
I can do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are having a fundraiser for the Favo Veterans Village on April 1st. It is at the Puyallup Elks Lodge. It is dinner, stand-up live comedy show, silent auction. The dinner tickets and the show tickets are $15. So it's $15 at the door. It's from 5 to 9, dinner's at 5:30 to 6:30. And the comedy show is from 7 to 8:30. And then we will announce the winners of the silent auctions at 8:30, and it ends at 9. The bar is open. The Elks is going to have their bar open. So that may be a good pointer for some of you to attend. So we're still looking for silent auction donations if anybody wants to do that, but we would love it if as many of you can attend as possible. Again, it's to all the proceeds go to the Veterans Village and the essentials and supplies and things like that we need. If you need more information or I can help you with more information, you can get a hold of me on my email, which is, I put in the chat, but it's Tammy, TAMMYC @fobhope.org. It'll be a fun night for sure. Our last one was a blast. If some of you that went know, so it's gonna be a good night. It'll be fun, and we'd love to see y'all. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. Kenny.
Hey everybody, my name is Kenny Coble, Community Engagement Coordinator for the City of Tacoma. One thing I'm hearing, though, of course, if you meant something differently, let me know. But one thing I'm hearing is that there are people here who are, I think, an area of growth for the city is spaces for you to be heard.
Hi there. How are you?
Sorry. Oh, thank you. So I hear a lot of people may be frustrated that you're not being heard by the decision makers at the city, by leadership at the city. My position does exist to help be creative how to remove those barriers. So if there's any way that I can support people here, I would love to do that. A promise I made to Maureen, rest in peace, one of my heroes, before the pandemic, was to create some kind of support for this group, whether it was a training or I think just a conversation with folks from here on how to creatively make space for people to get to interact with council or decision makers more. And I would, love to honor that promise. So I don't know if maybe people would want to have a meeting together or just kind of brainstorm ways to do that. I think there are lots of ways, right? We could do one-on-ones with council members. We could do your own events. We could think about coordinated ways to come to city council. I think those city council meetings are important. I know it's really frustrating. It's hard fitting important work into 90 seconds, but that is the way for us to keep it on record. So let's keep doing that. But if there are additional things that would be supportive, if anyone wants to help me, I would love that. If someone who maybe already likes me, like Sally, would want to do that. I'll still do all the work, but I would love to be supportive however I can. So I'm going to put my email in the chat. I don't even know where to start yet. Maybe I'll just throw this out here now, bring it up again next week, and we can slowly get to a place. I don't want to add a lot of work, but I think if we can organize together, if we can be creative, hopefully it'll be less work, right? Because you're not having to say the same things over and over. But your voices are, of course, so valuable. You people are the ones who both know this work best and can help the city build that bridge to talk to the people who are most impacted by these issues, because we definitely should be hearing from people who are experiencing homelessness. And so any way that I can help, I'm here for you. Thank you so much. I'll put my contact in the chat.
Thank you, Kenny, and we appreciate you being here. Norman.
I'll make this quick. I see two other hands up. We're going to be posting 2 positions for the city of Fife. I'm hiring 2 case managers. One's a full-time case manager, Monday through Friday. He'll be paying $25 an hour with city benefits. The other one's going to be a weekend case manager, 29 hours a week. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that will be paying $20 an hour. And those positions should be posted next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. And Lori.
Okay, so I want to invite everybody to come by Marlene's because they have, thank you to Dana and Francesca and Joe at Marlene's. I have an art show up there and it's based on sketches and paintings I've done of people who are homeless. It's a long project for me, and I didn't know until last Friday that I'd have an opportunity to get it up, but it's up, so go visit. We also have, I added in a lot of, the whole idea is to bring a different view to the public of people who are homeless. And, if you're the subject of a work of art, you got to look at that person, right? Somebody you might pass by or somebody who might make you uncomfortable otherwise, but hopefully this changes it. And Marlene's is such a great place to have this stuff because we have so many people going in and out. Also, we have like our posters and infographics, and some of the other graphics I've done are there for people to pick up so they can kind of get the idea of what it's all about. So come take a look. It's there through the end of March.
Thank you, Lori. And Monique.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I just want to toot the horn of Tammy and her team out there at Fob Hope. As of yesterday, they have housed 35 veterans, and only 2 of them ended up back on the street. That is amazing. So just shout out to Tammy and that team out there.
And that is a great way to wrap up this morning's meeting with something positive. So thank you for that, Monique. And thank you everyone for staying engaged with this work and being here this morning. If you have additional time and capacity and an interest in helping decide what will be in upcoming meetings, we're gonna have a small group of us meeting in this same space here in about 5 minutes. For everybody else, have a great weekend, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.